from WBBZ-TV Sports. It's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Beat the Champ's second week here at Transit Lanes in Williamsville. And Sue, we had a great week to get things started. We saw a long winning streak come to an end, and we saw an incredible clutch performance by our returning bowler, Bill Truman. What might he have in store for us this week?
I don't know. That was pretty exciting, but I know Bill, and he's going to bring us a game this week as well. And we've got some great competitors from to come up against, someone that's very familiar with the house, kind of similar story, and then a great bowler like Jensen. I mean, it's just going to be more of the same, I imagine.
Yeah, so it was just the way Bill Truman bowled with his back to the wall and put pressure on the other bowlers and came up with some wins. Can he keep that going? That's what we're going to find out. What do you think? Are we on a string of more overtimes here, Janelle? I know you are ready for them now.
I'm ready for anything at this point, but I guess we'll just have to wait and find out.
Yeah, we ended our last match with overtime for the second month in a row. Who knows what will happen this week? That's why you got to stick around. Let's get rolling.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Bill Truman, our returning champ. After such an exciting match, how do you calm down and get yourself settled back again after such an exciting finish?
That's a good question, but there's a little time between, so you get to calm down. You know, it's not like you're going to go right back up there while your adrenaline is pumping so hard. You get through that 10th frame, and you know you got to make all the shots. And fortunately, I got lucky on the second one, the 11th. But it just, now you have time to calm down a little bit. We got a little time before we go again, and go over and visit with the grandchildren, and away we go.
And it's nice. It's nice to do this here because everybody knows you, and was that a little added pressure, or does it feel a little bit better?
It's a little added pressure, but, I've been fortunate. I've played a lot of sports my life. I've been in a lot of situations. I bowled against you. That was the toughest one that I ever had was when I bowled you, and I was fortunate to win, but it was like, it's just been there, so it's not like, they talk about pretend like you've been there before, and I have been, so I'm fortunate. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that I've had chances. It was so glad to be on Beat the Champ again. I've been on all the other shows with Chuck Healy and Van Miller, and I've won, so it was like this was one kind of on your bucket list. It was a goal to get on Beat the Champ. It's getting a little harder. We're not as young as we used to be. In fact, we got a lot of years on all of these guys. Some of them are twice as young as me. But yeah, it was just so much fun to win. Whatever happens is all just bonus right now.
Okay, well, it was so fun to watch, and I hope we keep it going.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm here on Beat the Champ with regular face around Transit Lanes, Kevin Smith, taking on the man, Bill Truman. How do you feel about that?
Pretty good. A little nervous. He's been throwing the ball really well. It was a good match, the last match, so just got to try and get lined up and see what happens.
Do you think that there's any advantage or disadvantage to someone coming off such an exciting finish there like he just did last match?
I'm hoping he's a little tired from the extra couple shots he had to throw, so we'll see what happens.
All right, so you're accustomed to this place and the changes. Do they play the same as they do in league for you?
Pretty much. I feel like it'll be a little bit tighter today than it is usually on like Wednesdays or Thursdays, so just got to get lined up and see what happens, get some carry.
Okay, well, you look very calm.
A little calmer than the last time, that's for sure. So
okay.
We'll see what happens.
All right, well, good luck today.
All right, thank you.
Match number one features our returning champ, Bill Truman. He'll start us off against Kevin Smith. And, what more do we say about Bill? His debut on Beat the Champ, even though he's been an incredibly successful longtime bowler here in Western New York, but 2-0 start on the debut. And he just put together some incredible strike runs in those last two matches that he may need to continue to do today. And he will start off by leaving the 7-pin in our first match here against Kevin Smith. That ended a streak of 11 consecutive strikes for Bill Truman. That ended his last match and then carried through with the 4 strikes he had in the sudden death overtime in order to come up with his win over Aaron Magliazzo last week.
There's a name for that,
For 11 consecutive strikes?
But not in the same.
Wait.
It was 11. It was
11. Wait,
okay.
all right, well, we're going to ask Jack Gerhart, PBA pro bowler and the owner of the Bowler's Choice Pro Shop here at Transit Lanes. Our buddy Jack Gerhart going to join us for this match. What is she talking about
If
here?
he would have struck.
She was talking about a 12-bagger over the course of 2 games would be an Andy Varapapa 300.
A what?
An Andy Varapapa 300.
Oh, Andy. Okay, I thought you were just throwing some gibberish at me. That's actually a name, and I have heard of Andy Varapapa.
I was going to say, it's more than just a name. He was one of the greatest trick shot artists of all time in bowling, and a great bowler himself.
Right. You're getting a look at Kevin Smith. He's our challenger, 28 years old, from Syracuse, New York. Recently has moved here to Western New York. This is his second appearance on Beat the Champ. We saw him at Grand Island, at Island Lanes, a couple of months ago. And Kevin is a fine, young, up-and-coming bowler here in our area now that he is residing permanently in Buffalo. So, Jack, what are you up to these days? Are you still touring, and when does that all kick in? And other than keeping everybody all going in the right direction here at Transit?
Well, just doing my thing here at the Lanes. It's been a crazy year in a way. I started coaching Villa Maria College this year. We got our season underway. Just finished our first season last week, so that was an experience to say the least. Doing it, I've done lessons a long time, but actually being a full-time coach and trying to handle 8 girls at the same time was it was a little more than I was thinking it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little easier task than what it was, but it was fun. I'm hoping the girls had a good time at least, and hopefully we learned a little bit, and we'll maybe grow from there.
There's your look at Janelle Saban manning the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard early on in this match between Bill Truman and Kevin Smith. This is second frame for Bill Truman after a spare in the first. You know, it's always one of those things in sports, Jack, where sometimes it's one thing to be able to do it at a high level. It's a different thing to be able to tell other people how to do it.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. It's so much easier for me just to take care of myself, but then try and instill some things on others. You got a mix of personalities. Fortunately, we had a really good bunch of girls that everybody seemed to get along very well. So that part was a lot easier. I've heard some stories from other coaches about how tough it is just to mesh the personalities involved. But I was very lucky.
Well, we know you're extraordinarily modest, and when you and I met, I was in college, and you forget that you had a little bit of experience dealing with college bowlers, and you came out on the road here and there, and you saw all that craziness a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a different story. I wasn't in charge at all. I was just along for the ride, observing.
If you could get through teaching her something back then, and the rest of it should have been easy.
Well, she was actually pretty easy for the most part. It's kind of a nice contrast in this match here. Kevin, young, up-and-coming power player. He's been around a year or two now. I've gotten to see him bowl here. He's really kind of he spent some time working on his game. He used to hook it a little bit more. He still has all that power, but he's kind of learned to harness it a little bit.
Right, real nice at the bottom.
Yeah. He's got great hand action at the bottom, but he's learned to kind of square up his angles a little bit, keep the ball a little more in front of him. I think it's allowed him to just maximize his power.
You see a lot of them. He bowls here at Transit on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the league. So you've gotten a pretty good handle on. And as you said, he's only recently moved here to Western New York, so he's a little bit new on the scene. He's one of those guys probably jumped out at you. You're like, hey, who's that guy, right?
Yeah, first, anytime you see somebody new and he's got hand action like that, it always catches your attention.
That's 3 in a row, 3-bagger for Kevin Smith.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
So you do bowling balls for both Bill and Kevin.
Yes.
And so 2 different games, 2 very different games. Do they come and tell you what they want, or are they coming in and relying on your expertise in order to pick a bowling ball out?
I think a little of both, actually. I think with Bill usually will just come in and kind of tell me what he's thinking about, and he'll pretty much leave it up to me what I think might be the best ball to help him out. Kevin, on the other hand, has a little more tournament experience. I think being younger, I think he's a little more in tune with the equipment today. So he'll come in and basically tell me a little bit more of what he's after, and then from there we'll figure out what might be the best option. It's a good shot.
And Bill Truman will leave a cluster of pins there here in the 5th frame after 2 strikes and 2 spares through the first 4.
Well, you know how the letdown, of all that adrenaline that was going through him from having to finish the last game that he bowled. He really has to get himself back together today to take on another opponent, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that had to be probably one of the most exciting matches he's probably ever bowled.
Yeah, and if you weren't with us last week, what wound up happening was his opponent, Aaron Magliazzo, ended his run of 7 consecutive strikes and then left a pin in the 10th frame, which left the door open for Bill to need to strike out for the last 4,
Right.
and he did it.
And it's funny, sitting on the bench, you're saying, just give me a chance, right? Just give me a chance. That's all you want is a chance. Then
all
you
I
get
do is
that
ask.
chance, and you're like, whoa, now I've got to throw
And then
3
it
in a
went to
row.
overtime, and that's when Bill ran off, 4 strikes in the overtime to win. It was an incredible clutch performance where almost every time Bill came up, towed the lanes, he knew what he needed to do, and there wasn't much. It had to be a strike.
That had to be one of the best matches I've seen on the show in the 2.5 years we've been going here. That had a little bit of everything. You know, as a bowler, Aaron had the chance to put his opponent away and made a couple great shots. Failed to get the last one. Bill steps up, needing all 3 just to have a chance to survive, and does it. And then you go into the sudden death, and each of them striking back and forth. Yeah, it's all one can ask for.
And we both know as bowlers what all the stuff that goes through your mind, and just trying to clear your mind to just make those shots, even though you know you have good ball reaction. I mean, and Bill here with knowing everyone the way he does. I asked him in an interview, is that to your advantage or to your disadvantage that you have so many faces looking at you that know exactly who you are and they're rooting for you, yes, but then, again, I think makes it even tougher.
Being able to bowl PBA events here in Buffalo over the years and having the same sort of situation, you have family, friends, everybody coming out to watch you bowl. It works both ways. I mean, for me, it's always great to have faces in the crowd when you come back. You might be struggling a little bit. You can look, you see the support in your eyes, but at the same time, it can work the other way too. For me, at least for me, it always did, because you try so hard to do well, because you know they're all here. They all want to see you do well, and for me to finally, when I finally made the show in Buffalo, the support that was out there was incredible. People coming all over that I hadn't seen in years, coming out to the show just to watch the show. I mean, you couldn't ask for more.
Kevin Smith working a string of 5 in a row here. Don't forget, qualifying is set to get going for next month's show at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia, and the top qualifier in the round of 24 wins a television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV, and the winner of this month's TV, Will Gearhart, we're going to see later on this show. So that's 6 in a row for Kevin Smith. So can we call that a Jack Jurek while we're here 6 in a row? Can we make that your new nickname?
If you want to, you could, but I don't think that one's going to take off quite as well. I think the one thing I've noticed with Kevin's personality seems that he's a little more high-strung when he gets things going. It's easy for him to get his adrenaline up. So last shot he kind of pumped it a little bit. So I think the key for Kevin is just going to be able to, when he starts striking, just to keep his emotions in check, just keep the adrenaline level down a little bit.
Did that shot on 11 look like he got a little right?
He got a little bit right. The one on 12, he really looked like he got quick, and I think he realized he got away with one on the right lane.
So once again, Bill is under the gun here, knowing he doesn't have much margin for error. And
pretty much
keeps responding with his 3-bagger.
He's in a total must-strike situation here.
Yeah, this is true. Bill can't let up at all, and so he's in the position that he was in the roll-off already.
Yeah, already in the 9th frame here, going into the 9th frame.
Bill can max out for 250. Kevin now with 7 in a row is on a 250 plus pace, so Bill's gonna have to strike out. He's gonna have to.
This is the magic scorekeeper here.
We need to have him with us all the time, so neither of us have to think. Well, I would think for as long as you've been doing this, what? Statistician. I'm on it. I'm on it. You're hired. If it's up to me, you're hired.
Yeah, unfortunately for Bill.
Plus, getting to hang around you on a weekly basis would be a lot of fun
never a bad
too.
Thing.
No, that's a tough one for Bill. That open frame is probably going to clinch this match for Kevin
When he
Smith.
left it, that pretty much took any chance of the match away from. So
just going to, so now, as long as he kept winning, it would have just delayed Bill Truman's ability to have to go back to work here, so now he may have to do that.
Well, we're still going to see Bill on the show, but he'll be handing out the prize money
That's
instead
right.
of accepting it.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody will forget, as you said, Jack, one of the most dramatic matches we've had here, and that was in last week's show. That's 8 in a row now for Kevin Smith as he is on his way to a victory over Bill Truman. Jack's going to stick around. We'll talk a little more, but we'll get you ready for match number 2. We're off to a roaring start here at Transit Lanes, week 2 of Beat the Champ. We are back right after this. Final score of this one, Kevin Smith wins 269-207. Even when Kevin was in the middle of running 7 strikes in a row, you still knew it and sensed it, and you rattled up a couple because you weren't ready to give this up yet, were you?
Not ready, but he was striking like crazy. He could have had the first one. I mean, he left a 4-9. He left a 9 and the 4 went, but he could have had them all. He threw the ball absolutely great. And you don't mind, it's one thing if you lose 180 to 185 or something, but when you throw 260 something, my hat's off to him. He threw great.
Yeah, well, as Jack Jurek said, your performance on last week's show is one of the most memorable we've ever had here. So it was a lot of fun to watch. And now, Donna, he just has to go back to work now, right?
He has to go back to work, but we are so incredibly proud of Bill and very thankful that he decided to participate today.
Yeah, well, we hope we get you back on this show a lot more, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the great guys in bowling in Western New York, put on a great show, and now he'll go back to work in case anything goes wrong here at Transit Lanes. Match number 2, Kevin Smith moves on. Tim Jensen's the opponent. We've got that for you coming up next.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Tim Jensen, another great bowler, great veteran from the area. We see how well Bill Truman did, so we know that age is no barrier to doing this. Experience is almost good. What did you do to prepare for Beat the Champ?
Well, recently I just purchased some new equipment from Jack Jurek, and I've been wanting to, experiment with new balls, and I got 2 new ones, and they're working very well for me. I used the one during the qualifier. Matter of fact, it was the first time I used it. I threw 729 with it, and I'm just great with the feel, and Jack took care of me. Did a great job.
Well, we always say, that your local pro shop guy, and especially Jack, with his knowledge, is always the best to know your game and know the new equipment, because it's hard to keep up with equipment as the stuff keeps coming out. But there's nothing like getting a new bowling ball, is it?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, Jack knows my game. That's why I went to him. I mean, we bowled together back in juniors, and I just went to him. I said, you know my game. What can you give me? Point me in the right direction and line me up, and it's been great ever since.
Well, I also know what a great bowler you are, so I'm expecting to see some great matches today out of you.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Thanks.
Match number 2 features Kevin Smith trying to keep that good bowling alive against the opponent, Tim Jensen, in his 3rd appearance here on Beat the Champ. Tim, as he said to me, wants to get that goose egg off because he has not been able to win yet. Last time we saw Tim was at Alley Brant Lanes over the summer when he lost to Kevin Bianco. Nothing wrong with losing to Kevin Bianco, right, Jack?
Never be ashamed of losing to Kevin.
And Tim's a long-time, very high-level bowler here in Western New York, so it's good to have him on the show here, but he's got a challenge if Kevin Smith's going to bowl the way he did in the first match.
This should be an interesting match. Watching the warm-ups, it looks like you got some transition going on in the lanes. Both players look to be fishing around a little bit. It looks like if they get it to the right a little early, it's overhooking. If they don't get it out to the right enough, it's underhooking. So it'll be interesting to see who can make the proper adjustments here.
That was that over/under that I alluded to in the first week, and now it's just getting more and more magnified as bowling has gone on. So the right's going to become like if the ball touches the dry, it's going to just spark.
Now, the fact that we've had a bunch of other powerful bowlers here, but because he's a pretty powerful guy that's kind of ripping through things a little bit, will that change the lane conditions and maybe help a guy like Tim Jensen?
I'm not sure if it'll help or hurt in this case. What you're going to see, what you see today more with the younger power players is the lane does change quicker than it used to. The high rev rates peel the oil off the lanes a little faster, moves the condition around a little bit more, and so it does make today's game a little more challenging, where you have to make adjustments quicker on the go, and you can't be afraid to make moves in the middle of a game.
So after a strike in the first frame, that means Kevin Smith has struck at 10 of his last 11 frames, make it 11 of his last 12 as he ended his last match over Bill Truman with strikes in 9 of the last 10. So Kevin Smith, other than that spare in the first frame of the match against Bill and a spare ball in the 10th is perfect.
He's definitely dialed in pretty good. I think with his speed, he's able to keep his angles a little straighter, and his roll is a little more forward off his hands, so he's able to control the lane just a little bit more. Timmy's got a little more side rotation, which in some cases will magnify the condition a little bit. When it hits the dry, it wants to overhook a little bit. If it doesn't hit the dry, it kind of skids a little too long.
I was going to just bring that up when Kevin was up, because he is still to the right, which would seem like that's a spot on the lane that's just really dry, but he's somehow able to get the ball to that spot and have it not overreact.
A combination of Kevin's roll off his hand being a little more forward is going to tame that reaction a little bit, and his speed. He's a little firmer ball speed than Timmy, so he's able to kind of stand to that right a little bit more than Timmy can.
You saw the numbers on Tim Jensen, 55 years old, from Elma, as we mentioned, a guy who has been bowling at a very high level throughout Western New York for a very long time, bowls regularly here at Transit Lanes on Friday in the league, and bowls at a number of other houses around Western New York as well, too. Matter of fact, he was telling me he used to bowl when he was on a team with Bill Truman way back in the day when he was a young guy. Tim said, "I'm not as young anymore, but he goes a long way back with guys like Bill and a lot of the other bowlers, and you included as well, Jack." So Tim's a guy you root for, and just one of the good guys of the sport here in this town.
Yeah, me and Timmy grew up bowling junior leagues at Abbott Alleys way back in the 70s.
So, Jack, everybody wants to know, I know people are always interested, what's the latest on the pro tours, where you fit in, the senior tours? The Masters is in Syracuse this year, which is a big deal. We haven't even talked a lot about that, but we will. Give everybody an update on what's going on at the global level here in the sport.
Well, for me personally, a tentative schedule now, I'd love to get back to the Masters this year in Syracuse. Being close is, it's nice to get a chance not to fly cross country to bowl that tournament, and it's always been one of my favorite tournaments to bowl. I've been so close so many times in that tournament. It was the one major tournament I always felt like I had a chance to win. If I was going to win a major, I always thought it would be the Masters, and knocked on the door a few times. So looking forward to that. PBA 50 Tour starts up the end of April. Probably won't get to bowl all of them as much as I can, try and take care of my mom a little bit. But there'll be my favorite stop down in Charlotte, where I won a senior title a couple of years ago at George Pappas's Victory Lanes. That'll be the final week of April, 1st of May. So that's Masters and Charlotte, and then probably Long Island after that.
Right. Wait a minute now. We talked a little racing with Pete Maduri on last week's show. There's lanes in Charlotte, which is sort of the capital of auto racing. It's called Victory Lanes.
Absolutely. George Pappas, great Hall of Fame PBA bowler. He's got that center there, and actually it's in Mooresville, right outside of Charlotte.
Where a lot of the NASCAR teams are located.
Yeah, they have.
That's great.
The NASCAR Hall of Fame is down there, I believe.
It is, yes. Good strike for Tim Jensen here in the 4th frame, but Kevin Smith has been perfect through the first 4 as well, as he continues a really good run that he is on here. So Tim will know it. He's got his work cut out for it. The scoreboard, the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard tells you the story as well, too. And that's 2 in a row for Tim Jensen.
We're going to be back with more Beat the Champ bowling action in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
I was a little surprised to see him where he was lining up, that he's already that deep, but he does seem to have good ball reaction.
Yeah, he's a little deeper, but if you watch Timmy's approach real close, he kind of does come back to the right a little bit, so he stands a little further left than he ends up. So on the approach, he looks deeper, but where he's sliding at the foul line is not quite as deep, but he's definitely a couple, he's almost an arrow inside of Kevin right now because of his speed.
Oh, I was just about to say that's the first one that wasn't perfect for Kevin. I would have spoken too soon because that pin slides over and takes out the 10, and he remains perfect through the first 5.
And that right there is why you try and create speed and revolutions on a ball.
Get those pins spinning around, right?
They get dancing.
That's one of the ways to overcome what you may not think is a perfect throw, right? If you don't hit the pocket perfectly, if you get enough pin action, they'll take care of the work for you.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just this game. You either rely on accuracy and try and hit more flush in the pocket, or you try and learn how to create some more power, so you kind of create a wider pocket. I think that's where you see the modern game today. You see more and more that the younger kids, how they learn it, I don't know. I don't know how they learn it. I think if they just do it through imitation. They look and see and just try things.
Well, the bowlers that they emulate today, the ones they see on TV, are different than the ones that we saw in our day on TV. Ones back in those days were a lot more fundamentally correct, and now it's become more about creating power and rev rate than being fundamentally perfect.
Yeah, it's a different game, but if you really look at the top level young pros today, their technique is different, but they're very sound at what they do, and they do repeat at a very high level. But they've it's just like anything else. I mean, the game's evolved and changed. We drive newer cars than we used to drive. I mean, nobody has a problem with that. Technology in automobiles. That's the same thing you got. You got stronger automobiles and bowling balls now, and learning how to do whatever it takes to just get the most out of it. You can see the amount of side rotation Timmy gets on the ball compared to Kevin.
Almost these two, they're like picture perfect of examples of what you're trying to show. Like, you can see his hand up the back. You can see what you're talking about by being more up the back of the ball, and you can see his side rotation if you just watch the releases.
Yeah.
Strikes in 3 of the last 4 for Tim Jensen, but it is 6 in a row for Kevin Smith. He has some guests cheering him on here. Lisa, her sister, and her mother. And Kevin also wanted to make sure that we said hello to his family back in Syracuse cheering him on. And the folks back in Syracuse might be missing something pretty memorable here, because that's 7 in a row for Kevin Smith. As we mentioned, Kevin recently moving here to Western New York from his hometown of Syracuse, where he was a very high-level bowler there, bowled an 855 at Erie Boulevard Lanes in Syracuse, and now hangs out a lot here at Transit Lanes, bowls in leagues 3 nights a week. And the streak continues, 8 in a row for Kevin Smith.
If anybody's got this DVR at home and has the ability to slow that down and get a look at that release at the bottom where his hand is and how his hand goes through the ball, I mean, that's a great example of the modern release right now.
How much does something little like that, maybe not little, make Kevin as good a bowler as he is? Just a little bit of that hand movement at the end.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I think it allows him right now to really control his ball reaction on the lane.
Well, Tim's keeping pace, though, isn't he, here? He's doing his best to keep pace. He keeps rattling off the strikes as well.
Well, he's down
also.
53, and he's got a potential for 247, so...
Look at you adding up the numbers.
I had that done already. What I don't know right now is...
She learned from the best.
Kevin's on a 260-plus pace, so even...
he needs an
open.
Even
2 open frames will put him 240. It would just be a matter of how much count. But,
and another one. That's a 3-bagger for Tim Jensen. And 5 of the last 6.
With a pencil. You can still do it with a pencil. 1 mark here is all it's going to take to shut him out, though.
All right, so we go to the 9th frame now for Kevin Smith. 28 years old, Western New Yorker now from Syracuse, who is perfect through the first 8 frames. The easiest Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard Janelle's had to do in a long time. And 9th frame strike for Kevin Smith. Don't forget, we're going to start qualifying at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. It'll begin this weekend, and the top qualifier in the round of 24 wins a television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. The winner of the TV from here at Transit, Will Gerhart, is the next one up here, who will face what looks like it's going to be Kevin Smith. 10th frame. And the run at a perfect game comes to an end. What happened there, Jack?
Well, it looked like it just picked up a little bit quick. He may have just got around that one just a touch earlier, made the ball start to hook a little sooner.
So somewhere in Western New York, our buddy Mike D'Amico sits back with his feet up and goes, I'm still the only one to throw a 300 game here on Beat the Champ. But it is Kevin Smith who put a really good run at it, challenged him, and comes up with the win. So we're going to get another match out of Kevin. We'll talk with Tim Jensen for his reaction to this when we return. It's Beat the Champ at Transit Lanes. We're back right after this. Final score of this one, 264 to 226. I know, Tim, you said you wanted to get rid of that goose egg. It's kind of hard to do that when the guy you're bowling against rattles off and strikes in the first 9 frames.
He is. Kev's hot. He's throwing the ball great, and Kev carried, I didn't, but you can't take nothing away from him. He bowled great.
Right. And you put a little pressure on him, too. I mean, you kept striking yourself to make sure there wasn't going to be any let-up on his side.
Yeah, I wanted to put some pressure on him, but I just couldn't carry. You know, the 10 pins, 8 pins, 9 pins, it's kind of the story of my life, you'd say.
Well, Bill, I think you'll tell us the story of his life. He's a pretty good bowler, isn't he?
He's a very good bowler. We've bowled together for years, going back longer than I want to say. But Tim, great bowling. You'll be back again. Little to help you.
All right. We'll
Thank you, Bill.
maybe next month in Fredonia, we'll get rid of that goose egg for you.
We'll try.
All right. We got our final match of the week here. Can Kevin Smith continue to bowl as impressively as he have? We'll find out. Next match coming up from Transit Lanes right after this.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Will Gearhart. We're going to see it today on the show. But more exciting, you were high qualifier 775. And what'd you get for that?
I got a nice new smart TV from Dirt Cheap TV, 44-inch. Looks really good in the house. Got it set up right away. Looks good.
So the added bonus of bowling Beat the Champ is the TV, of course?
Of course, absolutely. And you get a little TV time, good experience, have some fun.
And a little promotion for our sponsor, Dirt Cheap TV, right?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, got it set up. It works great. Can't really beat it.
Okay. There you have it. So we're going to see some great bowling out of you. Maybe another 775.
That would be nice.
But we know you got to watch good TV, right?
Absolutely. Definitely. Got to watch this show on that TV, too.
All right. Perfect. Well, good luck today.
Thank you.
So we're ready for our third match of the day here at Transit Lanes. Kevin Smith moves on to be challenged by Will Gearhart, making his Beat the Champ debut. 28 years old from Amherst, had a great qualifying run. As we mentioned, he's the guy who was the top qualifier in the round of 24, won the Dirt Cheap TV, is bowling very well, gets his balls drilled by Jack Jurek. So he's got a lot of things going for him here right now, doesn't he? Except for the fact that he has to bowl against Kevin.
He's catching Kevin on a real hot run right now, that's for sure.
A good start for Will Gearhart.
It's good out of the gate, huh?
Always good to get the first one off, yep.
Especially when it's your first time on the show.
Yeah.
It's, you know, okay, get rid of those butterflies. Hasn't been a whole lot for Kevin Smith, who's won 2 in a row with 269 and 264 scores on the board and just a run of strikes in both matches.
I got to talk to Kevin a little bit after the match, and he had switched balls after he beat Bill Truman in the first match, and warming up with Timmy in the second match, they were both struggling a little bit, and he did make a ball change, went to a less aggressive ball, which allowed him to stay a little bit more to the right in that same zone where he started, and what a great adjustment. That's what I say. He's coming off a big game against Bill Truman, but 10, 15 minutes later, lane changes a little bit, and he's making a ball change. That's the modern game today, and you got to be able to do that.
Well, take everybody through that, Jack. How do you go through the decision to do it And then how, and Sue and I talk about this a lot, how do you go through the decision to make a ball change and then what ball to change it to?
Well, that is the question that everybody, like,
Right.
if there was a concrete
I think that's what you
answer-
say to me all the time too, right?
If there was a concrete
If you knew the answers, that you'd be back on the Pro Tour, wouldn't you?
The hardest part is it's gonna change. You know, from every time you bowl, it's gonna be a little bit different. I mean, hopefully you get a chance. You know, when you have multiple bowling balls, you get a chance to go out and practice a little bit. And one of the things you do during your practice sessions, one of the things I do with my practice sessions, is I try things. I mean, I'll try different balls in the same place. I'll try the same ball in different places and try and manipulate my hand, try to make it hook a little bit more, make it hook a little less. You know, those are things. It's not easy to do, but that's what separates.
That's that level, you know.
That's what separates the really good bowlers is being able to know their equipment and being able to manipulate it at the same time.
Yeah, and I'd say, you know, taking a step down from that, I do have an idea of what ball hooks more, hooks less. You can simplify it.
Shot there.
Yeah, it was. You can simplify it to surface and how aggressive it is, and just make moves from there. And sometimes you just need, you need a change. I mean, when a ball stops working, just make your best educated decision and line up the best that you can, because what you had before is not working.
Right. But sometimes, Jack, things are working, or you bowled great in the match before, and isn't there sometimes a hesitancy to want to
absolutely.
change?
I think that's probably one of my biggest downfalls is the slowness to make that adjustment, because it looks good and you feel good and you're right there and you think, I'll make a change now. I mean,
right. Sometimes you think it's you, and sometimes it's not you.
But you know, there comes a point if your ball is getting to the pocket and not striking a lot, something's wrong.
That's the trigger where you don't think about it anymore. Do it.
Isn't 4-pin, 10-pin an indicator? And that's probably one of the toughest times to actually change balls is when you're hitting the pocket.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, that's something that you had always taught me, that when you start seeing weak 10s and then your adjustment and you're leaving the 4-pin, then change.
Yeah.
So Kevin Smith, after the rare non-strike in frame 2, gets right back on blowing those pins all over the back of the lane there, and strikes in 2 of the first 3 for Kevin. But on the flip side, Will Gerhart putting the pressure on him. He's got strikes through the first 3 here. What a way to debut here on Beat the Champ for Will Gerhart.
That is definitely how you want to come out of the gate your first show. Whoa.
Oh, boy.
Just
Talk about razor's edge.
That was a little close.
Now his feet are getting a little faster, are they not?
A little quick, yeah. That one looked like it just came off his thumb just a little early and just lost it to the right a little bit.
I don't even know the physics of how that ball stayed there.
Revolutions there. Fortunately, that part of the lane is probably the least amount of conditioner, so the ball was able to just get enough traction to stay on.
Good spare.
And a good spare pickup for Kevin. So 2 strikes, 2 spares in the first 4.
This is a great chance for Will to put a little heat on Kevin right away.
Right. I mean, he's finding himself down 30 in a hurry.
In a heartbeat.
There's the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard that shows you those numbers. Will Gearhart is from Amherst, works as a receiving manager at the Burlington Coat Factory, 28 years old, has been bowling since he's 10, and he's got a good group of people cheering him on here today, including his wife Maria, his parents and his sister, all part of the Gerhart cheering section of Transit Lanes.
Wow.
They like what they have seen so far.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
So back over to Kevin now, 5th frame. What a great stroke. What a smooth, powerful. No hitches, no delays, nothing. Just very, very pure.
That hand action through the bottom is so quick, and the revolutions they create. It's just amazing.
Now, is that something that one can learn, or is that just natural?
That's a good question. If it's learned, I have not quite figured it. Like I said, you see it more so in the younger guys. I mean, there were, back in my early days on tour, there were a couple guys that had rev rates that would probably be close to that, but they were the exception. Oh, that was a big shot.
Bobble on the 10-pin wouldn't go down.
He threw it good.
He threw it great.
Have you learned more about your game, Jack, since you've been coaching? Now, have you had to think about the sport differently than when you were just out there throwing?
I think, I wouldn't say so, no, but trying to convey messages to another is you know, I think implementing change in someone, I think, has been the most challenging part. I mean, for me, I was just always one that if I was struggling, I would just bowl my way out of it eventually. I mean, I just would go to the lanes, and I was fortunate enough to have access to lanes a lot, and I'd have to bowl my way through. I'm really good at seeing some things, but making changes in someone else, getting them to actually, that's the hardest part. You know, everybody gets locked into, you know, you get into habits, and it's hard to change.
You found that on the coaching that you've done as well, too?
Well, it's easier to give people tricks and keep them within their own game than it is to try to change their game. And yet here we are talking about two young men here, and side rotation and forward roll. When you start talking to people about that, that's when it starts to get complicated. You know, and it's like if you just say to somebody, look a little further down the lane, you know, bring it in a little bit, or you know, something like that, just to adjust to the condition that they're on, to maybe, you know, strike a little, you know, get a little bit of different ball reaction. But you're talking about changing somebody's game. The only thing that's going to do that is them buying into it and a lot of practice. If they're not willing to put the time in, I mean, I think that might be one of the issues we're talking about here, is that young people are so used to computers and cell phones and all this, and everything's quick fix. There's no quick fix to sports. It's just muscle memory, repetition, and repeating. And the only way to do that is practice.
No doubt about that. I mean, this is a game that instant gratification just doesn't come.
No, you're right. Now, this is a little bit of an unusual match here for Kevin Smith, because we just saw in his first two matches where he just ran off big runs of strikes. Hasn't happened in this match. Again, looking at back-to-back spare here, opportunities here in 6 and 7. So that means 4 spares and 3 strikes for the first 7. What's changed for Kevin?
That's going back to how we talked earlier in the show. I mean, that's how fast a lane condition will change with these with modern bowling balls, with higher rev rates like Kevin's got. It doesn't take much for your ball to start picking up the lane in a little different spot. And as soon as if it starts to hook a little sooner, it changes its motion down the lane. And when that motion down lane changes, it changes your angle into the pocket.
And it's as simple as carrying and not carrying.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that you've necessarily lost the pocket, does it?
No. You could be throwing the ball very well, but the ball now is not seeing the lane the same way. So for Kevin, it's time. It looks like he's moved in a little deeper with the same ball. He's running it, in a one-game match. You don't have much time to do much, so obviously you're not going to try anything too crazy. But if he gets a chance to survive the match, he'd be thinking about.
I mean, that's
a
a challenge
change.
of being the champion and being the person that's won the match before. The person coming on is seeing that condition through fresh eyes,
right.
And you already have a conception of what's out there, and you've already, had your share of success, and so you're going to be hesitant. Where that person is just coming out to what's there now,
right.
And that's almost a bit of an advantage.
I think more so now today. Yes, the guy coming in, I think that's great perspective actually. Seeing it for the first time, not having a preconceived idea. I think years ago, when the lane didn't change as much, it was probably much easier to run up the ladder because you're on the lane, you got a feel for it.
Right.
But now with how quick things change, and it's so hard to make adjustments when you've bowled 260.
Right.
Yep. So Will Gerhart opened with 4 strikes, spared, then went 3 in a row, and now is facing a spare opportunity here in 9. So he's been pretty consistent. You can see it on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, putting himself in a position to win his first Beat the Champ match. Again, he was the top qualifier in the round of 24, so he was the winner of the television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV.
Spare here will.
I was just going to say, spare here wraps up the game.
Wraps it up. So Will Gerhart is going to get
I'm not
that
sure that's
victory.
how I would have shot that spare. He went the slow, big
That
hook
was about as slow as I've seen anybody throw on this show, but it got done what it needed to, and Will Gerhart is able to come up with the victory, his first Beat the Champ win. And boy, again, prime example, Kevin Smith just looked unbeatable. I think a lot of us thought he was going to throw a perfect game in the last game, and he's thrown well here, but not well enough in order to get the win. That's what makes this sport so much fun and what makes this show so unpredictable. When we come back, we talk with Will, we talk with Kevin, and we wrap up week number 2 here at Transit Lanes. We're back with Beat the Champ right after this. A good match to wrap up week number 2 here at Transit Lanes as Will Gerhart beats Kevin Smith 255 to 228. After the way you were bowling in those first 2 matches, almost knocking everything down, what changed for you in this one?
A little transition again. I made a good ball change. My second match, moved right, played a little straighter. This match, I just didn't make the move soon enough, and he got lined up, so that's what happened. He threw the ball well. He wasn't the top qualifier for nothing.
Yeah,
so
he put a lot of strikes up there too, didn't he?
Yeah, it's tough to come back when you get down that much. So.
Yeah, well, you put on a nice couple of weeks show here, Kevin. Even Bill wants to still stand next to you, even though you beat him already once. Bill?
It's the way it is, Kevin, but great bowling. A couple of 260s, and the last game, you know, a little change earlier. Might have been a different story too, but great bowling. Great bowling.
Thank you.
Sue?
Well, do you think there's a little bit of an advantage to coming into a shot with no preconception of what's out there?
Yes and no. I mean, you'd like to know what's going on and how the bowlers are bowling and see how things react, but it is kind of refreshing to come with the mindset, and you don't know how other people are bowling. You just come in, try to throw your shot, make good shots.
Well, now you've got a good match to watch on your new TV.
I definitely do.
All right, keep it up.
All right, we're going to get to see Will because he's coming back for next week's show. Some good bowlers lined up to challenge him as well, too. Sue and I will come back, wrap it up, and get you ready for next week at Transit Lanes. When we return, it's Beat the Champ in Williamsville. Back right after this. Well, first off, a correction for everybody, because this was not Will Gerhart's debut on the show. Our statistician, which is me, screwed that one up, Sue. So maybe that's why he bowled so well. This was not the first time. It's actually his second Beat the Champ win.
Right, and here, where he posted a win 2 years ago.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense that Will Gerhart bowled as well as he did. He's going to have to keep doing that because the next guy he's going to bowl against is our all-time winningest Beat the Champ bowler. I know the numbers are right for Mike Zarcone.
Right, Mike Zarcone and Brandon Gotti. We've got some fireworks next week, so he's going to have to keep up that work because there's going to be a lot of excitement going on around him.
Yeah, and the vibe has been great here at Transit Lanes. It's been crowded. There's been good turnout. I know you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, everyone's brought their fan club with them, and that's just awesome. We love the noise. We love the excitement. It only pumps us up more.
All right, well, can't wait to see the fan clubs for next week's show. Make sure you're here as we continue from Transit Lanes in Williamsville. We'll see you next week on Beat the Champ.